everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. Today is the day of love, and we have the perfect person to come and talk to you about. We have Reverend Maria Felipe, who wrote this book, Live Your Happy. So welcome, Maria.
Thank you for having me, CJ.
I wanted to talk to you about how you came to this body of work. So A Course in Miracles, I don't know a lot about, but tell me how you were exposed to the Course of Miracles.
Well, I've always been fascinated by, ever since I was a little girl, I've always been just always asking myself since I could remember what is this and why are we here? And that was just ever since I was a little girl. And I had a mystical experience one day when I was 4 years old that I felt a presence next to me on a couch.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked the presence, what was it? And the presence told me that it was Holy Spirit. And that's the first time I ever heard of the term of Holy Spirit, not knowing what it was. And I asked the presence, what is Holy Spirit? And the presence said, I'm in you. And I always was intrigued by that. But then the world came in and I forgot about my spirituality. I forgot about God. I forgot about that connection with spirit. I just started to believe in the world of form. And then I got really depressed in my early 20s and I found the book Return to Love by Marianne Williamson.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in complete desperation at the time and in a major depression. And she kept on talking about in her book, this blue book called The Course in Miracles. Oh. And I was like, what is this Jewish lady talking about? these Christian themes. She's Jewish and she's like talking about this like Christian themes. I was like, what is going on here? So I wouldn't start studying the course at that time, but I was intrigued because all the stuff that she said in the book really resonated with me and helped me. Mm-hmm. Then a few years after, I was at a Unity Church. Unity Church are non-denominational churches, and they're all over the U.S., and they usually have course groups. So I went into this course workshop because I saw the blue book there at the store, and I said, this must be the blue book that the Jewish lady was talking about. So I went to the workshop. This would be 1995. I found her book, and in 2001, I went to this workshop. And this chubby older man has this board, and he's on the board, and he's writing in chalk, and he writes the Course in Miracles. These are the principles. You're responsible for the world that you see. What you perceive is your responsibility. He also shared that you forgive people for what they didn't do. And he also said, something also like you're wholly responsible and you're not a victim of the world that you see. And I was floored. I literally fell off my chair. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what is this guy saying? I don't understand a word, although I knew instinctively that that would be my path. And he talked about this voice, which is your inner wisdom. And that's when it all began. That's when I kind of got into it and I started studying it for the rest of my existence till now.
Wow. Okay. So how many years have you been studying it?
Well, since 2001.
Wow.
So,
okay. Wow, that's a long time. Okay. So what I liked when I was reading your book, Live Your Happy, you talk about A Course in Miracles was meant to be a shift in perspective. So this is really about a course in shifting your perspective, which I thought, I never knew that that's what it meant, A Course in Miracles. And the very first chapter, you talk about something that I think is instrumental to the whole ideology, which is a definition of what is God and who is God. And it's maybe, as you said, a remembrance of what you felt at age 4. But tell me a little bit, for those who aren't familiar with the Course in Miracles, what is it? What does it say about what is God and who is God? And just a little bit before we talk about that, what A Course in Miracles is a channel piece of work. Is that right?
Yes, it is a channeled piece of work. It was published in 1976, but it was in the works 10 years before that. It was channeled through even somebody that didn't really believe in God, which was Helen Schuckman. She channeled it. And supposedly it's channeled through her, and it's Jesus speaking to us. Now, Do I believe it or not? I personally do. I feel that you don't need to believe that Jesus is speaking through there. I just feel that the concepts are so radical and so beautiful
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't matter. I don't think about that. I think about that the principles that it teaches has shifted my perception of where I experience this world in such a different way. I'm constantly at peace and happiness regardless of what's going on in form.
Mm.
So if a midget wrote it, I don't care. I
Right.
just know that the principles have helped me.
Right. Because and it's funny because I was talking to my husband today, and he said it's really, he said, you know what I'm realizing? He was picking up his own inner guidance, and he said it's really all about truth, beauty, love, and truth. And I think when you hear something that is true, regardless of whether it's channeled or, if it was written by a marketing person, it doesn't even matter. If it feels true to you, then it's truth. And you can change your perspective or not. It's totally up to you, which is what I'm hearing when you read this stuff. It resonated as true for you. So what is God and who is God according to the Course in Miracles from this channel piece of work? And tell people what channeling is for folks who are not familiar with what a channel piece of work may be.
Well, God is, and I say it in my book, and the Course says it as well, is God is but love, and therefore so am I. So
Mm-hmm.
God is God is basically that essence within us that is truth. Is that essence within us that is non-duality, that is oneness, that is ever present and eternal. And what does that mean? It means that God is basically that existence, that part of us that is whole. So there is no struggle within the mind of God. There is no fragmentation. There's no there's no separation, fragmentation, no duality. And it's that space that the Course in Miracles says that we dwell in,
Mm-hmm.
that we live in. We just have forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So the Course would say that the Son of God is dreaming. So
Mm.
is dreaming right now, and we've had this horrible nightmare of where we are experiencing ourselves as separate, fragmented. But the Course tells us that we've never left the mind of God, that
Mm.
the mind of God is where we always reside. I
Mm-hmm.
love this beautiful quote from the Course that says, "The world was created when the Son of God forgot to laugh." And it's just beautiful because it was that one time, it's called the tiny mad idea
Mm-hmm.
of when there was one thought that thought, hey, I want to be separate. I want to be special. But God is oneness. God is wholeness. He didn't make that thought real for us.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go. Boom. Right? In separation, fragmentation, but we've never left the mind of God. So then God is there. God is there, and he doesn't even make this world real for us, which is so wonderful because a lot of people say, well, God created the wars. How could God create, suffering children? How God has nothing to do with this, of course, would say.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, God holds us in such high regard, waiting for his children to remember him
Mm.
and trusts that they will. That's why he's given us the power of decision,
Mm-hmm.
because he respects our decision, but at the same time has left a spark in our mind so that we can remember him.
Mm.
And when that separation or fragmentation happened, the Course says that's when the ego was created.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So the ego's created. The ego is the part of the mind that is, again, dualistic. It's separation. It's fear. And then guess what? The Holy Spirit is the answer to the ego. The Holy Spirit is a gift from God so that we can remember and still have that connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because God has nothing to do with this CF that's going on here in the circuit. Nothing to do with this madness. Doesn't want any part of it. He's like, listen, you
Uh,
go ahead, you go ahead and you suffer all you want, whatever you want to do, but I'm gonna just wait here in the sidelines and just remember your truth for you. I'm gonna send you the Holy Spirit so the Holy Spirit could remind you that I love you and you've never left my mind. It's just
right.
a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
You don't.
it's funny because I have a slightly I've been studying Tantric Shaivism, and actually the core beliefs are actually very similar to the ones that are actually in A Course of Miracles, and it's all about that God. In this case, it's Shiva. Whatever you want to call it, right? But Shiva comes down and through with Mother, the act of the Mother creates all these individuated points of its creation. And so each one of these, you, me, this cup, like all these things are splendid creations from, the divine, and every single one of them is precious. And at the same time, we forget that, so this cup is trying to be more important than me, or, I'm trying to be more important, whatever it is, we forget that we actually emanated from the one form of consciousness. And that's the part where we go sideways, right? Where we move away from God's love and move more into fear, which is something that you talk about in your book. So I kind of, when I think, again, the whole premise that you had on that very first night is that we are responsible for our own perception of what we think reality is. And for me, I'd like to think like God is like, I gave you free will. You can do whatever you want. And, I'm learning and growing as you're learning and growing. And so we're all kind of learning and growing together. Even the struggles are kind of these beautiful things. I don't know. That's how I view it. But I don't know if there's any right way. You view whatever your perception is the most healthy and feels good to you. But that's what for me, because otherwise if I think like I just effed everything up, God gave me this great thing and I just messed it up with my dualistic thinking, that just makes me feel sad.
Yeah, well, the thing is, and I love that you bring that up. I love that you bring that up, CJ. It's really important. I feel that it's something to look at, because what happens is that when we decided to separate from God, we do experience this enormous guilt, and it's unconscious guilt. So what happens is it's important to recognize that, because what happens is that with that unconscious guilt, you project it outside of you. Because you don't want to deal with it. But it comes from the separation. The Course in Miracles says you're never upset for the reason you think. So you might think that you're having a discussion with your husband and you're fighting, let's say, and you might think that he's doing something to you. But the Course in Miracles would say you're not upset for the reason you think. That's just a projection of where you're trying to punish yourself, because unconsciously you feel guilty for that separation. And it's not something bad. I think that you can see it in a way of being aware of it and recognizing that you can choose again, that you could gain your power and understand that there's nothing in form that could ultimately hurt you or take away your power, because you're whole and complete. So if we start to just forgive these images and these projections that we're constantly doing because we feel we want to equalize the situation. So we're like, I don't want to feel this guilt, so let me put it on my husband. I don't want to feel this guilt. Let me put it on my neighbor, on my boss, so that I can equalize it and I don't have to feel it. The ego would tell you that's going to fix the problem. But what happens is it's just going to be more magnified. Why? Because now you've projected it outside of you. Right. So now not only that, you're going to see it completely outside of you, your guilt, and then it's going to bite you in the butt, because ultimately, whenever you attack a brother, you're just attacking yourself, because the Course would say they're just you.
I love it. So what I love about the Course of Miracles that I don't know anything about it. I've never read the book. I've just read your book. But what I understand about it is that someone once said to me, Course of Miracles says that there are two emotions, love and fear. Is that true? And why just love and fear? How does it boil down? So like I'm jealous, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm, all those different things, really betrayed. It all comes down to fear. Is that right? Or so is that, yes. Is that what that means? And so what does it mean that it's really just two emotions, love and fear?
That's a great question. And I feel that it simplifies things, when you think about it, because it's just two.
Right.
So the Course, it's perfect. It's fantastic. So basically the Course teaches that you have two different thought systems and two different teachers that are running the show in your mind. And depending what teacher you're choosing, what thoughts you are choosing to focus on and to marinate in are going to take you straight to heaven or straight to hell. Okay.
Yeah, I get it.
and and it's not somewhere you go to at another time. It's right here, right now. Now, haven't you felt, and we could ask your listeners and yourself, is haven't you felt like you're in hell?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
this morning I
hell.
woke up at 2 in the morning and felt like, oh my God, why am I up at 2 in the morning? I can't go to sleep till 4:30, and it felt hellish to me.
It feels beautiful, and I love that you share that, because that's what I'm saying. It's maybe your thoughts were running the show, or maybe you were worried about something. We don't know. It's like, basically, if you're not feeling at peace, it means that your thoughts are in error. Your thoughts
Yep.
are not aligned to truth. So what's beautiful, and the question you just asked me is, yes, my book, and I simplify it. That's why it's wonderful. I love that you haven't read the course. That's great, but that you read my book, because I feel it's a very good intro.
It is.
Because the Course in Miracles is written sort of like the Bible,
It's really
and it's very
thick.
poetic, and it's very dense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big blue book. So my book kind of gets all the insights and makes them very elementary and practical.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk about, so you have love and fear,
Mm-hmm.
and you have, the Course in Miracles says, two teachers, Holy Spirit or ego.
Mm-hmm.
You could say inner wisdom, which
Mm-hmm.
is your innate truth, true self with a capital S, or the separated self, which is the egoic mind.
Mm.
So we're used to the word ego from the world,
Right.
egotistical.
Right.
Um, we attach ego to something else. It's a little bit similar, but not really.
Right.
In the course, the ego voice is basically that voice within you that, one, looks outside for its happiness, two, wants to judge, wants to defend. The ego voice wants to manipulate and make happen and control and manifest more and more and more and more in form.
Right.
The ego voice is out to kill you, literally.
Right.
It's out to sabotage you. Ultimately, even though you can appear in form to feel happy for a hot second,
Right.
trust me, that new Mercedes that you bought in a year or two, trust me, is not going to make you happy anymore.
Right.
Why? Because we constantly want more and more.
Mm.
Holy Spirit mind is very loving. It doesn't say, what can I get? It's more, what can I give? The Holy Spirit voice is the voice that guides you more internally. And it's not forceful. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't want to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a state of constant flow of allowing a wonder, filled with wonder. It's
Mm.
very childlike and innocent. It's like,
Mm.
wow, I wonder how, for instance, like right now, I don't know if you know that I'm 7 months pregnant.
No.
And
Wow. Congratulations. Ah!
yeah,
That's great.
I'll show you my little bump in a second, but I'm filled with wonder. I'm filled with
Mm-hmm.
wonder. I'm not concerned about my birth. This is Holy Spirit, okay? I want to give you the difference in form, like how it looks like practical. I'm not scared. I'm not thinking about how am I going to pay my rent in April, or how am I going to provide for my child, or how am I going to breastfeed. It's more of, yeah, I have inspired thought and inspiration of like a birth plan, and I just hired a doula because I was so inspired. So I do these things in form, although I'm very open, and
Mm-hmm.
spirit's very open. It's like,
Mm.
oh, I'm not stuck on like I have to have a natural birth, or I can't use medication. It's all this. It's more like, I would love to have a natural birth, but I'm also open. I'm open to
Mm.
the moment. I'm open to my son, just us together, working together, but I'm
Mm.
excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm not like worried about it. And that's what spirit is. When you're in spirit, you're in trust. You are constantly not trusting yourself, like me, Maria, I'm going to make it happen.
Right.
I'm going to make this birth be the way that I want it. That's egotistical. That is going to send me straight to hell. But if I let go and I trust, and I'm like, I don't do it. I let it be done through me, is very different.
Yeah. Okay. So I have this great, because I think people ask this question a lot. I've noticed is how do you know if you're operating through love or fear? And you just gave, it's like inside versus outside, defending versus open, judging versus accepting, manipulating versus trusting. Like those are kind of what I heard you say. And what in page 69 in here, whatever is it? Let me see. Page, how do you know? Okay, it says, ego will make you, and I love this, so I'm just going to read some of the stuff in your page.
Yeah.
Ego makes you feel as if you've taken an action right now or else. Like you have to take an action or else. Ego warns you about being harmed or losing something. It's reactive and defensive. Ego has a high expectation for how things should turn out, and it above all, it has to be right. And then ego insists that you must do something to find happiness. So, such as to be happy, you must get the degree, or, you must have like a certain doula, or, in your case. So I like this because this in some ways, because you're always like, I'm hearing a voice, but is that voice my ego or is it God? And so I like that. And then contrasting, you say the Holy Spirit's voice is entirely different. The Holy Spirit makes you feel at ease. There's no rush because you will be told all you need to do, need to know and do. And I think it's probably like when you need it is what I would add to it. The Holy Spirit reminds you that there's nothing to lose or defend against. The Holy Spirit keeps you open and curious about what happens next. And the Holy Spirit reminds you that I need do nothing. It teaches you that everything is exactly perfect right now. And I was just talking to a friend and she said she just, her dream job is always to be a federal judge. And she just is applying for this job. And she said, I don't know if it's my ego or if it's my heart and my spirit that's asking me to apply for this job. And I said, and she's like, I don't know how I would know. And, she was saying, I feel like I have to take action now or else if I don't, this job, like, because these Supreme Court judge or these judge openings don't happen all the time. So that would be like ego. And it warns you about being harmed or losing something. And she was like, I think I may lose this opportunity if it doesn't, and it won't come along again. And it has high expectations for how things should turn out. It wants to be right. Like, this was my dream job. I want it to be right. And so it's interesting. So, and she's like, but then there's this job that I'm doing right now that offers, it offers a law clinic for people who are in need. And she said, it really makes me feel good when I do that, so it's like ease, like all these different things. And so I can look at her question that she posed to me, and there's kind of a very easy way to decide, is it your heart and Holy Spirit or is it your ego? Because I think it's always hard to determine those things.
And I love what you just mentioned. It's funny because I was actually thinking about this earlier when you asked, and the feeling is going to be very helpful. So you saw how she says that it makes her feel very peaceful. It makes her feel. I think that the gauge that you can use and form to be able to distinguish and discern between what teacher you're choosing is by how you're feeling. So if you're feeling a little bit anxious, if you're feeling uneasy, you need to check in with your thoughts and see what you're thinking. You could be thinking, oh my God, this job, I have to apply now, or I'm going to lose it, or I'm not good enough, or, whatever it is. And those thoughts are going to give you a feeling that you're in an egoic mind. But then with this job, it's a beautiful example. This job that she has, this kind of, she's more at ease, she feels like this connection with like peace. And that means that those thoughts about that job are more in alignment. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't mean that she won't be a federal, be part of, is it federal judge? Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. Federal, it doesn't mean she's not going to do that. The whole thing here is not about behavior. Okay. This is not about behavior. This is not about doing anything in form. This work is about changing your mind, changing your mind. So she can go ahead and be a federal court judge if that's her purpose and that's her passion. And maybe she has a drive for it. When the ego comes in of that, it has to be and it's manipulated, it's not going to work. But if she goes into it, giving it over, saying, Holy Spirit, I have this strong desire to be a federal court judge. It excites me. And I give it over to you, because if I put my foot in it, I'm going to screw it up. Right. So let me give it over. Let me give it over. And you show me the way. You know what I want? This is my favorite prayer. And you could substitute the words if you guys want, because I want the viewers to be comfortable. But it's like, may it be God's will. You don't want your will to be. Why? Because you don't know what's the highest and best for your soul growth in this planet. We're here on assignments to be able to awaken and ascend. So if it's for her to be a federal court judge, it's going to help her to ascend. It will happen regardless of anything, because it's scripted. It's in the script. She could perceive it through joy or fear, or love and fear. So I think the feeling, for your listeners is like, just check in with yourself, I'm feeling, and because your heart kind of constricts, you feel nervous. Right now I'm struggling a little bit with, I always get a little bit nervous when I step out of my comfort zone about something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to plan the launch of my book in Spanish, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do a very big party, and I'm renting this space and getting really
Yay.
excited about it. But
Yeah.
but I'm also like, what does that even look like? Am I going to sell tickets? Am I going to cover this
Right.
this amazing taco bar that I'm going to
Yeah.
have? And then so I'm taking a little poo poo in my
Yeah.
pants. so so what happens is that this is a perfect example. So I feel it. Listen, I talk about in my book, you need to feel your feelings, guys.
Yeah.
It's like spirituality is not brushing things under the rug. Spirituality is authenticity. I always say authenticity is sexy.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you're so sexy. Look how authentic you are. It's like you have to feel it. And I'm like, okay, I feel these feelings. All right, I'm scared. It's out of my comfort zone. I'm actually fearful about money. I'm scared I'm going to lose money, or that I'm not going to sell tickets. And feel that. It's part of the human experience. I don't want to go and have a glass of wine or go watch the TV to trance me out. I want to sit with my feelings even though they're uncomfortable. Why? Because I'm going to get my healing on. So
Mm.
I feel it. It's so uncomfortable to feel the feelings. Let me tell you, I get it. But I promise you, after you have felt the feelings, that's where the awakening happens. That's when you start to give it over. And you're like, does this really matter? Does this really matter? And all these inspired thoughts come in from spirit, like, Maria, are you giving away your power to this party? Like, who gives a crap? It's like, let's say you don't sell any tickets. Let's say the party doesn't even happen. And do you know what I mean? It's like, who cares?
Right.
And it's not coming from like, oh, I don't care. It's more like, I'm not defined by this party. I'm not
Mm.
defined by this book. I'm not defined
Mm-hmm.
by being a teacher of God. I'm
Mm-hmm.
defined by God himself. I'm defined by
Mm.
love. And
Mm.
then I'm free. And then I'm
Mm.
free.
Okay, so I'm going to practice with
Okay.
me because this morning I woke up at 2 and I thought, why am I waking up at 2? And I couldn't go back to sleep. And I thought, okay, just get up. At this point, I actually thought God is making you wake up. So go up, wake up. And I do these morning pages where I'm journaling. So I'm like, why am I awake at 2? And it said to me that a friend of mine just recently got diagnosed with cancer. And it's been upsetting me because on some level I feel like I don't want to be upset because if I'm upset, then it will upset her because she's a psychotherapist and she'll sense that I'm upset and because we're so intuitively connected. So I'm not allowing myself to be upset. And so that's kind of an ego, right? It's like I'm defending and saying, nope, I can't. I'm going to harm someone if I do this, right? I'm going to harm her if I feel this. And it's not the right thing to do because she's actually having pain enough to actually, for her to feel your pain too, just doesn't seem like a morally correct thing to do. She's 85. So I have to just stuff my emotions to feel versus feel
Mm,
the pain. Okay. So that's my ego, right?
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Holy Spirit. So I woke up thinking, well, and see, I don't know if this is me rationalizing or not. I thought, well, I do know that death is not the final chapter of our lives. Like we go on living, and I may not have the same kind of relationship with her, and I will miss her terribly, but we're still connected because we're always connected. But, I don't, so that's like, there's nothing
That's Holy
to lose
Spirit.
or defend. Yeah. And I had written her a letter yesterday that said, I don't know. Like, I feel like we feel like life and death is like they're two separate chapters, but it could be a continuing saga. So, why don't we in this lifetime journal with each other about life and death? Because even though I may not have a cancer diagnosis, just journaling about our feelings about life and death may help both of us live more fully. Even if you have, another year or two or whatever period of time to live, like, let's do that. And then I thought, well, should I send it to her? Should I not send it to her? I'm not sure. But there was a part of me that thought, don't send it to her because she said she wanted to be left alone. So I didn't want to send it to her for fear that it could harm, it's like crossing over her boundaries. So I don't know. So that's kind of me real time kind of facing
Mm.
this kind of thing. What would you say how would you, because someone had asked, like, how do we check in with our thoughts? And so this is what we're doing here.
Hmm. Yeah, and one thing I really appreciate about your work and the questions you're asking is I'm very about practicality.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the book is called Live Your Happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's to really live and embody these principles. This is why we suffer, is because we really don't want to heal, truly. We still want to hang on to our grievances. We still want to believe that our love is outside, etc. So I feel like we need to practice, just like you sat right now with me and you were practicing.
Right.
That's how we're going to be able to heal. And one of the things that you said, let's go back to the beginning here. You said you got up in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and you went to stillness and you went to journal. That is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because the ego in the morning is on fire. Okay? The ego wakes up and it's in the to-dos,
Right.
you know? It's in the to-dos. I got to do this. I got to do that. So when you got up, even though you were a little bit flustered and you were upset, I feel like when you started journaling, you started to come back to truth.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
There was something that started happening. And that's important. And that's what I share with people in the morning. First thing you do is you give yourself 5 minutes and you go within and you put your ego in check, because your ego is going to mess with you throughout the day. So I really love that you did that. And that's very important to bring up. The second thing is, I love how you went through the processes there. And I feel that what I loved, what you said, is that you started to become aware. You're kind of opening. This is what spirituality is. This is what awakening is like, you're like, look at this thought and look at that thought and look at this thought, how I'm thinking about her here. Do you see? So that already is so powerful. That's what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you were a beautiful example of that. Now, one thing that you said is, I'm scared. Like, I don't want to be myself, or I don't want to do certain things because I don't want such and such thing. And I feel that, being loving is being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And, but also we're informed and people are going through stuff. You know, the Course in Miracles says this world is not real, but I'm not going to sit there and tell people in their face, if they're suffering, hey, listen, stop suffering. This world is not real. That's not being loving.
Right.
That's being, that's something pretty crappy to say to somebody, especially if they're going through something. So I always tell people, listen, be spiritual, but don't be weird.
Yes.
Be spiritual, and you could be loving, and you got to meet people where they're at. And I feel like that's what you've done. You've respected her boundaries to wherever she's at, and you're doing your part. Now, I love this part about journaling. One, because it pumps up the volume on the Holy Spirit voice. When you're journaling, it's so wonderful, especially if you ask questions and you say, Holy Spirit, I'm very sad about the situation with my friend and that she might pass away. And it really, really kills me to even think about it. And you just sit with that with Spirit, and you have Spirit answer you, and you journal about that. Mm-hmm. And then you start to pump up the volume on the Holy Spirit voice. The Course in Miracles says the ego speaks first and speaks the loudest, because we're in a body. So when you're journaling, I think that's beautiful. And I also feel that you'll be guided on what to say to your friend. You'll be guided on what to do and what to say. And I feel that you're there, because I feel that you're very aware. So I feel that would be very helpful. But I also feel like it's okay for you to be sad. Yeah. And it's okay for you to feel like if she passes away. I mean, I feel that that's perfect. Yeah, that's actually healthy. Instead of like, now the only thing that was kind of a little red flag for me was like, I feel like you don't want to be yourself. You want to pretend to be something else for her. Right. It was, you know how you said, oh, I want to kind of pretend I'm fine or whatever. Right. I feel that the more you are your true essence, she feels that in an energetic level, so if you're pretending, oh, she's fine, or, you know what, I don't want, it's not union, it's more separation. That's the only part that I saw there that needs to be corrected. Yeah. But other than that, I love the.
It's funny because I did say, like, I gotta, because you were talking, I'm like, I gotta tell you, I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm sad. And she's like, well, don't be sad. And then she's like, and then she's trying to justify why I shouldn't be sad. And then I thought, oh gosh, I wish I hadn't told her I was sad, because it got her out of the moment. So I don't know. I guess I'll play around with it, but I do think, I don't know if that's going to help her or not. So we'll see. All right, so this does bring up the question during Valentine's Day. Okay, there's a whole bunch of things I thought in your book that you talk about in the next couple minutes. If we can talk about during Valentine's Day, people feel alone. So there's a whole section in here, are we ever alone? How do you know that you aren't alone? Like on Valentine's Day, if you're not with a loved one, or you may feel like, oh, I'm alone. Why am I not lovable? What's wrong with me? Why can't I keep a relationship? I mean, these are the kinds of things that people say during Valentine's Day. What would the Course in Miracles say about being alone?
Well, what the Course would say is, the truth is that you're not alone. That's the truth. Because, like I say in the chapter, you are the love of your life, ultimately. And the more that you recognize that you are the love of your life, what does that mean? Is that when you start to really cultivate this inner relationship with inner spirit and Holy Spirit, you start to be more in your true self with a capital S, your true self, not your little self, the egoic self, your true self. And I know it's hard to say, oh, it's Valentine's Day and you're not alone, whatever, because you are loving God. I'm not
Right.
saying that. I'm saying that, again, you feel that experience. I feel alone. I appeared to be single in this realm of experience for 9 years,
Mm-hmm.
of where I felt very lonely at times. And
Mm-hmm.
when I had relationships, they sucked big time. So
Sorry.
I went through a lot of I went through a lot of different things in relationships, and I felt very lonely. When I stopped to feel lonely was when I started to embrace it.
Hmm.
This is what it is. The reason that we suffer is because we wish something would be different.
Hmm.
So when you're in the present moment, instead of thinking about if such and such person would be in my life and bring me a box of chocolates, I would be happy. If you let that go and you're just present, and you just drive your car and you're very present on that drive, and you go to Walgreens and you buy yourself a box of chocolates and be very present about that, it's going to change the whole experience,
Hmm.
because now you're not thinking of an outside source filling you. You are in the moment and you are going through the motions and behavior of love. And I think that what happens is that you always, the reason you suffer is because you want it to be different. You want it to be different,
Hmm.
instead of, you know what, it's Valentine's Day and I appear to be alone. But the truth is that, for me, being single and being alone was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because when I was distracted in a relationship, Spirit told me once through a download I had through journaling. He said, Maria, you're single because I need you to do my work. And if I bring a man into your life, you just completely lose yourself. Like you're gone. And you have such a beautiful mission that if I put anybody even remotely near you, I lose you.
Oh.
You just like trans out. You're like check out. And you become fixated with this image.
Right.
So guess what? You're gonna experience yourself single and alone, which is not true. It's just you're not gonna have another form body, because I want you to cultivate self-love. And you
Hmm.
can't cultivate self-love with having another body in your life, because you go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and
Right.
it's not the cereal,
Right.
you know? and and I'll add, and you think a lot of thoughts that are caca, which is of
Right.
the ego, and then you're gone.
Right.
So that's what I say this Valentine's Day, to enjoy and bask in whatever situation it is. A relationship, and not be in a relationship, and enjoy the ride of appearing to be single and appearing to feel alone.
Hmm.
But I feel that the most important thing at this time is acceptance.
Hmm. And
Acceptance of what is
and
changes
how do
everything. It's a
so
big game changer.
and how can you actually accept it and say I'm in true abundance? Because you talked about the concept of true abundance. So when you were in that say situation and you're like, oh, I don't have a guy, how do you know that you had true abundance and realize that abundance when you were in those 9 years of being single?
Well, true abundance I talk about in my book is, recognizing that you are as God created you. which
Mm-hmm.
is a radical definition.
Mm-hmm.
Abundance is recognizing you are as God created you. What does that mean? It means that you lack nothing and have everything, basically.
Mm.
Nothing is truly, truly missing in your life. That's what's beautiful.
Mm.
So how I was able to start to cultivate this, and through the time that I was single, was that I began to live the principles. What does that mean? Before it was I am love, but I'm going to look for love outside of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I am abundance, but I'm going to think that my source of abundance is in my bank account.
Mm.
Okay? I had to go from that, or I am abundance and I am abundance. So it's like it's in alignment. What
Mm.
happens is that we are disaligned.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh, this is super important. It's like, oh, I want to change, and I want to be at peace, Maria, and I want to be happy. I've seen this all the time with my clients. I really want to quit smoking, or I really want to forgive my ex-boyfriend, or whatever it is, but not really. We really don't want to change. Why? Because we're addicted to suffering. And the reason I could say that is because I've been there and I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have kumbaya this, walk on coals over here, go to this workshop, read this book, read that, blah, 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 blah. And you're like continuously like outside sourcing and have like this self-help desperation
Mm.
of where I was able to say, okay, no más. In Spanish, it's like, that's it, I'm done. And I had to kind of get check with myself and really get honest with myself that I didn't want to change, that I
Mm-hmm.
thought I did, but that I really didn't, because I still wanted to look for that person outside, that which I made my God, which is a man, to fulfill me. And at the
Mm.
meantime, I'm saying I am love over here and studying the Course in Miracles. And over here, I'm trying to convince this guy that has clearly told me that he's not emotionally available to
Right.
convince him to be with me.
Right.
So,
Versus kind of saying,
yeah,
I have it all inside. I don't have to go. So true abundance is saying, I have everything that I need. I don't need to go get a man. I don't need the Mercedes. I don't need any of those things. And you had mentioned trust. So what does trust look like in that context of a romance or a romantic? It's like I got acceptance. But what does trust mean in this particular context? God had said, hey, I need you to do my work, and you get lost. So how did you move to a new level of trust to say, like, all right, I guess I'll just be 9 years without someone because I'm doing God's work? Like, how did you move to trust in that?
yeah, I love that. Yeah, well, old trust, let's just distinguish old trust first. So old trust is basically the trust that the world has taught us, that I trust you because you have shown me you're a good person,
Right.
right? Or I trust this situation because in my past I've had a good experience with it, or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, the trust that I'm talking about in my book is really trusting your inner guidance, is trusting that voice has your back and is guiding you towards the direction of truth, of love, of happiness. It's like you basically get out of your own way and allow it to be done through you, which I shared earlier. How was I able to start to trust and be in trust? Was that, first of all, which is great you brought it up, is acceptance. Is that within the trust, I had to accept the circumstances, that I had to appear to be single for that amount of time, even though I didn't like it and it sucked at some points. And I had to accept that, and I had to be okay with that. That's why I always say, you need to forgive even if you don't want to. Take responsibility even if you don't want to. Why? Because you're going to heal. You're going to feel
Right.
better. So I accepted even though I didn't want to. So
Right.
that was me not compromising anymore. That was me not making any exceptions anymore.
Right.
And that's where the healing happens. So then I started trusting. And what happens is when I started trusting, I let go of the need to have a boyfriend.
Hmm.
I let go of the need to be a mother.
Hmm.
I let go of the need of needing to be married again, or needing to experience that romance.
Hmm.
I let go of that neediness. And I said, you know what? I fully embrace my singlehood. I fully embrace that I cannot share this experience and this success I haven't formed with another soul yet. But you know what? I felt that got me ready for what I brought in. So what happens is I created such self-love at that time, and it just makes me cry even thinking about it, that I was able to start to have inclusive love. So before it was exclusive. So this guy's it. This is my God, and you for instance, you are out of the picture. You're not in my life. This
Right.
guy is everything.
Oh, so it's like a mono focus.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you, not so much. You, I love you, right? But when I started to have this like self-love and this singlehood, I started to have inclusive love. So I start to fall in love with everyone and everything. And it's such a romance because it's like, CJ, I could be in love with you at this moment. And I could be in love with my dogs, and I could be in love with my congregation, and I could be in love with my students. And before it was just so lonely road for me because that man was everything for me. The man was my God. The man was complete in me. The man in my life was, that depended on my happiness. That man was more important than my mother and my father and anybody else in my life. That was like my focus. It was my God, because I was looking for my happiness and my love in a man. When all the happiness I ever wanted, I already had it. I just didn't know it, which was the love of God within me. The that I was looking for in a man was already in me. I just couldn't experience it. So when I started to trust that voice, when I started to trust that love that dwells within me, I started to become free. And the way I did it was by no longer compromising. By no longer compromising.
Oh, that's beautiful. This is making me cry. Okay. So what were the compromises that you weren't willing to deal with anymore?
Yeah, I wasn't making any exceptions. I was taking full responsibility for my experience when I was choosing to be a victim. I was, basically every day, I was no longer compromising. I was very, very, very aware of my thoughts, and I worked on it, constantly. Okay, here again, I'm not feeling good. All right, I'm thinking with ego. Let me go back to Holy Spirit, peace. Constantly, no compromising anymore. Owning it, owning my stuff, even if I didn't want to. My goals, I had all these goals, and my goals started to become peace. It's not I want the job, is no, I want peace. It's not that I want a bestseller. No, I want peace. It's not that I want to be successful. No, I want peace. So it was like constantly no exception of recognizing that there isn't anything in form that could really make me happy, truly happy. Nothing in form. To recognize that fully and work on that every day.
I love it. We thank you so much. That was just beautiful. That's like a best Valentine's Day gift for everyone listening. So we've been listening to Maria Felipe, and we are talking about her book, Live Your Happy. Thank you so much, and happy Valentine's Day for everyone out there.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.